then that person's not standing for anything. If you stand for something, there are going to be some people that don't like you. So it's our reasonable service to stand for the Lord, to not be conformed but be transformed. Do you remember, some of you may not remember, but the ambassador that represented Iraq during the time of Saddam Hussein when he was the leader in Iraq, that guy's name was Tariq Aziz, I think. And it was when Iraq was still, before we had gone to war against Iraq, and he was over here, and he was representing Saddam Hussein. And he talked like an idiot. And we couldn't believe it, and he told lies, and in fact, he sounded just like Saddam Hussein. And that's because he was a loyal ambassador to Saddam Hussein. He represented him accurately. There was no doubt about it. We didn't like him just as much as we didn't like Saddam Hussein. And in fact, he got in the same kind of trouble that Saddam Hussein did. And what about USA ambassadors in foreign countries? They're supposed to represent the interests of the government of the United States. If they don't, they're failing. But that's what they're supposed to do. And what's the worst thing they could do is be caught in some scandal on the side or something that has nothing to do with what they're there for. They're ambassadors. And so, for us, we're ambassadors for Jesus Christ when we're at a party. Somebody's being a bully against somebody. Well, our job is protection. Our job is to stand up for those people. You know, a lot of people like to play golf. Maybe there's a lot of cursing. Maybe somebody's using the word of the Lord in vain right there in your little party. And there's nothing wrong. You don't have to be obnoxious, but there's nothing wrong with saying, you know, I really would appreciate it if you wouldn't use the Lord's name in vain, you know, when we're together, because it really hurts me. And then if they keep doing it, then don't play golf with them next time. You know, you don't have to kill them or anything. But our first duty is to the Lord. And that's what an ambassador's first duty is. You can't ever afford to forget it. And I've used this example before, but I think it's a good one, and that is that you should always be looking for what your duty is. If you forget it, then we're in big trouble. We're not representing them anymore. And what I want you to think of in your own mind is in the flesh. When we're thinking about our selfish interests in the flesh, we worry about our rights. What's my right? That's what we worry about in the flesh. That's what we're always there for. Wait a minute, he's taking my right. Well, that is in the flesh. You can tell it's in the flesh because in the spirit we have duties. We're ambassadors for Christ and we have duties to perform. And so if a person gets in your face and is not being very nice to you or anything else, if you're in the flesh, it's, hey, you don't have a right to treat me like that. But in the spirit, it's, wow, Lord, something's wrong with this person. You know, what is it? Why have you put them in front of me? What can I do to maybe help them? It's a whole different thing, because in the spirit we're being transformed, but in the flesh we have rights, and we want all our rights, and we want them right now.
All right.
So bear that in mind while we go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 18. Bear in mind that we have duties. Colossians chapter 3, verse 18. Where Paul tells us, or the Lord tells us through Paul, he says, well, he doesn't tell all of us this. Remember, in the Bible we look at who he's talking to, when, for what period of time, and he says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as it is fit in the Lord. Now this is one of the least used and most hated verses in the Bible. And why would that be? Why is it the least used? Why is it the most hated? Because a woman is being told that she should submit to a man.
I love it.
Yes, I know. We don't. and we have to think about some things when this comes up. Are men, as a rule, worthy of being submitted to?
No, not really.
Not at all. We're lousy old sinners. We're not worthy of being submitted to. We're worthy of hell. We were saved by the Lord. That didn't make us worthy of anything. Are men better, smarter, or wiser than women?
No.
Not at all. then why should women even think of doing this thing about submitting to men?
As is fit in the Lord.
Well, and before we get to that, let me ask you this. If you had taken this seriously before you got married, and you young people, now that you're not married yet, how much more would you have examined your husband in light of this instruction from the Lord? You know, many women think that the Greek translation for submit means change. Change your husband. See, he's okay as long as I change him and fix him, and then he'll be perfect, you know, then he'll be all right. But if you knew you were going to have to take him just like he is, and you were going to have to submit to him, you might be a little pickier before you got involved with him. And that goes two ways, right? But that's what you've got there. That's God's Word. So, and then, here's the other part. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. He says, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men.
Amen.
And that really is the secret, you know, because there is, I remember a time when my daughter came to me and she says, well, Dad, those teachers in school, they are lousy. I mean, they're just terrible. And she gave me details of how terrible they were. And I said, you know, honey, it's really too bad that they're like that. But that's not your job. Your job is to be a good student. Your job is to get whatever you can get out of them. And maybe some of them are better than others and you'll get more. But your job is to get whatever you can get out of those classes as you go along, regardless of how good or bad those teachers are. And so this is really telling us the same thing. It says whatever we do, don't do it because man deserves it or because you respect him a whole lot. Do it heartily as to the Lord. That's the secret to the whole thing. That makes it easy if you can really understand that. But it is hard at times because you're having to be respectful or loving or submitting to somebody who doesn't deserve it, because the Lord is saying, do it as if you were doing it to Him, because one day you're going to be in front of Him and He's going to be pleased with you because you did what pleased Him, regardless of the man. What about when there's no man to submit to? Well, then you have to do it yourself. That's part of this world that we live in, that we're this sinful world, is that there are a lot of situations where they are no men, or you've lost your man, or you're divorced, or you're widowed, or whatever the situation is, and then you just have to live your life the best you can, submitting to the Lord and doing it heartily as if to Him. And you just have to rely more on Him. That's what you have to do. And in some cases, and I won't go any further than the first step of this, there are some women that live in the same house with a man and there is still no man there. And there you really have a lot of time to get on your knees and pray to the Lord, you know. But getting back to Mr. Bill Cosby and his joke, what he was saying is that woman's got a tough job and I'm glad I don't have any part of it. The truth is we do have a part of it. And when we're doing our part in it, then things are working right in the family. And when we're not, we're throwing everything on a woman. And she's having to follow both roles. And then we wonder why she's crabby.
That's the reason. I couldn't figure it out.